So the Minnesota Twins have found their man. They will have a new manager behind the wheel for the 2019 season, and that man is former Tampa Bay Rays field coordinator Rocco Baldelli. He was born September 25th, 1981. He is 37 years old, which will make him the youngest manager in the majors next season. I've seen a lot of people say that they don't know a lot about Rocco, so I figured I'd hop on here, give you guys a little bit of information on him, since he is going to be the new man behind the wheel for the Twins in this 2019 season. Like I said, he's the youngest manager in the majors next season. He was previously the Tampa Bay field coordinator in 2017 through 2018 underneath manager Kevin Cash. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Rays really exceeded expectations after dumping off a lot of their veterans, such as Evan Longoria, Chris Archer. They won 90 games. So something was going right with either the manager and the coaching staff, or the players were just buying into it. So it's obviously a good sign to have Rocco Baldelli come out of that system. Obviously, Joe Madden, Kevin Cash after him, both great managers in their own right. But let's talk a little bit more about Rocco. As a player, I've seen a lot of people say he was just a subpar player. I would have to argue that he was drafted in the first round, 6th overall, in the 2000 MLB draft by the Rays. He really was quite the highly touted prospect. Coming out of Rhode Island, a lot of people compared him to Joe DiMaggio when he was coming out of high school in the prep circuit. So he was drafted 6th overall in 2000 MLB draft. Debuted 3 years later in 2003. Quickly became one of the premier young offensive and defensive talents in the outfield. Placed third in the Rookie of the Year voting in the AL. So obviously a great player to start his career out. 2 years later, though, his career was derailed by a rare metabolic and muscular disorder, which causes soft tissue issues, fatigue, and other ailments that he had to battle with. He missed the entire 2005 season and was constantly on the DL after that, dealing with that. So really, it wasn't even a playing issue that hurt Baldelli's career. It was a physical issue and an ailment that caused him to miss a lot of time throughout his playing career. Played with the Rays and dealt with that issue until 2008, where he signed with his hometown Boston Red Sox. He played with the Red Sox in the outfield, but was constantly on DL throughout that stint. He returned to the Rays as a minor league coach in 2009, but never officially retired. During the 2009-2010 season, he decided to start working his way out towards a comeback with the major league team for the roster. So he was a player coach for the minor league team for the Tampa Bay Rays in 2009-2010 and debuted back in the majors in September of 2010 with the Rays. So obviously he worked hard to not only manage but play and made his way back to the majors. In 2010, he retired, was forced to retire in 2010 after that muscular issue, but was quickly hired on with the Tampa Bay Rays as a roving instructor and special assistant to baseball ops. For Twins fans, it's very similar to the same role that Justin Morneau, Torrey Hunter, Lee Troy Hawkins, Michael Gadier are all in with the system right now. What I expect if Joe Mauer does retire, I'll talk about that too later in a video. If Joe Mauer does retire, what I expect his role will be in the future if he wants to stay with the organization and with baseball, instead of just going to be a family man with his daughters and his wife. But yeah, quickly became the roving instructor and special assistant to baseball ops after retirement in 2010. 4 years later, was promoted to first base coach with the Rays. So he got his first taste of on-field coaching, and then was promoted to field coordinator last season. That position was created for him by manager Kevin Cash, who he played with the Rays during his playing career, and Kevin Cash speaks very highly of Baldelli. The position was created for him by Kevin Cash, involved analyzing tendencies of opposing hitters, coaching defensive skills to players, helping the team implement defensive strategies during games. So really a lot of stuff that, especially for a team with, I don't know, maybe 4 very young outfielders that are really in the prime of their career, would look for in a manager. So a guy who could help Buxton, Rosario, Kepler, and Jay Cave if he's the fourth outfielder, or Zach Granite. Have a lot of young outfielders coming up the pipeline with Alex Kirilloff, Brent Rooker, Trevor Larnach, Lamont Wade. All these guys could get chances at the majors here in the next season or two. So it'd be nice to have a guy who can relate to not only the younger players, because he can do that being 37, but have specialties in the outfield where a lot of Twins fans say our strengths are. So that is what happened with the coaching tendencies there, or coaching career for Baldelli. He has a 7-year career in the majors, 1,910 at-bats in the majors. Career batting average is .278, .323 on-base percentage, and a .443 slugging. So that's nothing to scoff at as a player. That's very reasonable numbers. A little bit above replacement level for major league caliber outfielders. It's a solid starting outfielder and a very solid fourth outfielder. But yeah, his impressive list of mentors that Baldelli has played under: Lou Piniella, Joe Madden, Terry Francona, obviously in his Rays and Red Sox careers, and then was a member of Kevin Cash's coaching staff. They, like I said earlier, the Rays pretty much fire-sold everything that wasn't boarded down and really went into full-on rebuild mode, but still went 90-72 under Cash. So a very good season where a lot of people expecting them to kind of drop off the table and fold up and start their rebuild, their full-on rebuild. But that didn't happen. So let's get to Baldelli and my thoughts on Baldelli and really why the Twins may have hired him. Baldelli is, like I said, 37 years old, late to some of this younger core that the Twins are putting together. Now, the Twins, as much as we hate to say it as Twins fans, they still are in, I wouldn't even consider it a rebuild. The terms I use, I see rebuild thrown around in the Minnesota fandom way too often. Thrown around way too often. And that's what I really dislike about Minnesota fandom is they're constantly going for who can we fire, who can we get rid of, whose fault is it? This isn't a rebuilding team, we'll be honest. They made the playoffs last year, even though they got bounced in the first round by the Yankees in a very winnable game. Both teams really gave that game away to the other team. It's just the Yankees took advantage of us giving it away more times than we took advantage of them giving it away. This isn't a rebuilding team. This is a retooling year, which is really what they did last year. A lot of people are going for the head guys' heads in Derek Falvey and Levine. That shouldn't happen either. They did everything right. They had a team that was making the playoffs, and they supplemented that team with good additions. Lance Lynn, who was an all-star pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. Addison Reed, who's a phenomenal reliever. Fernando Rodney, who we all loved the Fernando Rodney experience. I personally loved it. Is wishy-washy as a closer, but when he's on, he's on. Logan Morrison, who hit 30 home runs last season with the Rays. There's not a whole lot that this team could have done more to go and get top-tier talent. Yes, they missed out on Shohei Ohtani, but that Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes was going to end one way or the other with Shohei making his decision, which was best for him, and he wanted to stay on the West Coast, closer to Japan, so he chose LA, and obviously he's doing great in LA, but still has some injury issues. Yu Darvish didn't work out for the Cubs. He's on a much worse contract than Lance Lynn was, and we got out of that contract, so really it's a win for the Twins. Addison Reed will look to come into shape next year and be that Addison Reed that we know he can be. Fernando Rodney, if he wants to come back and doesn't accept the player option with Oakland, I could see him being a picture of coming back. Brian Dozier, a lot of fans want him back. I don't think he'll come back. I think there's an option that he can come back, but it's not going to be for a lot. And I think the Dodgers may want to pick him up again and just have that solid bench again. Obviously, Eduardo Escobar signed a 3-year deal with the Diamondbacks. That's the player who I would really, of the guys we traded, who I would really want back was Escobar. Obviously, that will not happen now since he's committed to the Diamondbacks. So now you're looking towards the offseason. You want a new, fresh face in there that handles analytics. Baldelli really does handle analytics. In a 2007 interview, he talked about analytics and talked about how he wants to adapt analytics to better improve the players, but doesn't want to make players into robots. That's really a solid mixture of both new school and old school in the MLB, so Baldelli has a good mixture of that as well. But time will tell, see how Baldelli does. Obviously, I'm pulling for him. He's going to be a solid addition to the coaching staff as well. The next big thing for me is to see what happens with bench coach Derek Shelton. who was another candidate for the managerial job. Have not seen his name thrown out in any other manager jobs, so he may come back as the bench coach. Baldelli and Shelton worked together in the Rays organization recently, so very good chance that they have that chemistry there. So we'll be interested to see what that happens, see if there's any other turnover in the coaching staff. I think you'll probably see a new, potentially pitching coach. Sorry, Garvin Elston. But maybe that's the one thing that they bring in. I think Falvey and Levine really want to keep James Carlson, the hitting coach for the Twins, who has been credited in turning a lot of these players around and working hard with Buxton and Sano and Rosario and Kepler to get their hitting back on track, and deserves a lot of credit for that. There deserves a lot of credit for last year's postseason berth as well, because all the hitters were praising James Carlson for getting them turned around. So I think that is probably all right, Rocco, we'll let you pick a couple guys for your coaching staff, but Ralston stays. So I think that is the caveat. And finally, just this front office gets to pick their guy. They inherited Molitor, which Molitor is a good player, and he won Manager of the Year last year because obviously the Twins pulled the Tampa Bay Rays and outperformed expectations. So you got to give it to the guy who outperformed expectations the most. And that was Paul Molitor. As a manager, I respect Paul Molitor, but was he the best fit for an up-and-coming team? Probably not in my opinion. So now we got Baldelli, young guy, is going to have some new ideas to bring into this organization. It's going to be fun to watch. I think we're going to have a very heavy turnover on the minor league side with coaches developing all that stuff. We want the same. Twins and Falvey and Levine are really trying to set a standard of development and player relations and player ops and everything. So from top down, they want the same schemes. So now that we have Rocco Baldelli in the fold as manager, you're going to start to see those small changes in the minors and within development as well. So it'll be fun to watch, fun to see what kind of happens with the coaching staff. But as it goes on, I'll make sure to keep you guys informed. My name is Ben. Thanks for watching. Let's go Twins.